Hi, Adam Vingan here from the Tennessean with colleague and columnist Joe Rexrode. We're picking up the pieces of the Predators' 5-0 season-ending loss in Game 7 here at SAP Center to the San Jose Sharks. Certainly a tough loss for the Predators, who proved all season long, especially the postseason, that they were a resilient bunch, and they certainly did that in this series, but for whatever reason could not get it together in this game and were dominated from start to finish. Joe, you look at this game, especially that first period, the Sharks take a 2-0 lead. They had a 2-0 lead in the game the other night, but it was a far different feeling about this 2-0 lead than the other one.
It was. You thought the other night that the Predators, they looked a little tired and maybe things were catching up. You thought maybe they were in trouble. Yossi gets the goal to go. They dominated the rest of that game. The first period of Game 7, I think, was the most dominant period in the series from what I saw. 17-3 in shots. They were in Nashville's end the entire period. It could have been worse. And of course, then it got worse, and it just, you knew it was pretty much over early in the second period. But that was a stunning display to me after what we saw in the second and third periods just a couple days ago.
Yeah, that was shocking to me too. I got the same feeling that for some reason when it got to be 2-0, I wasn't sure if they were going to come back. They weren't playing poorly, I don't think, for the most part in Game 6. Of course, I think they only had one shot on goal at the time the Sharks had the 2-0 lead, but tonight it was just reminding me of Game 5 from the start. Even before the Sharks scored their first goal, the Predators were on their heels immediately. They weren't getting into the offensive zone. The Sharks were getting into the offensive zone with ease. The Predators were struggling to get out of the defensive zone, and they get that first goal, and it just continued from there.
And making mistakes with key players,
right,
on the defensive end.
Especially Shea Weber and Roman Josi. They had a very rough night. They were on the ice for all 5 of the Sharks' goals. And they were making the plays that were uncharacteristic of them. They were Roman Josi made an interesting decision on the Joel Ward goal to reach for a puck that wasn't settled, lost his footing, and got wheeled around. Shea Weber made essentially gave Logan Couture a puck early in the second period that led to the Sharks' third goal. I mean, those two guys are both NHL All-Stars, heavily relied upon, the most productive pair in the NHL defensively. And tonight, when they needed the most, it didn't happen. But Joe, you've been covering this team now for a couple weeks. You've seen, you had a micro view of this team. I mean, they were a great team during the second half of the season. There were points where in January, where if you would have asked me if this team would have made it this far, I may have chuckled at you. I mean, because there were just times where they just looked lost, and they were not a very good hockey team in early January. But they turned it around. They were one of the best teams in the last 2 months of the season. From what you saw from this team in this short window, I mean, what impressed you the most about them, and where do you think they can go?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, tonight was the first time I've seen them lose and play poorly.
Right.
Like, from my personal view of this team, I'm like, well, this team's going to win it all, So tonight you saw some of the downside. And the interesting thing is, I think Philip Forsberg was a huge part of the regular season. Didn't produce a lot. I think 4 points in 14 playoff games.
1 assist in this series. It was a -9. I know -9, plus minus is a stat that isn't necessarily reliable, but I mean it's still telling that it was so high.
Yeah, and I think Ryan Johansson, obviously that move was a big part of this team coming together late, right? And you can see with him the makings of a special player. So I come away thinking, a lot of guys were talking in the locker room about, hey, how many chances do you get? Everybody knows you don't get a lot to go deep. I mean, not many guys in this team have even been to a conference final. But I do feel like there are pieces in place for more runs moving forward, and Pekka Rinne is probably a big question there, right? I mean, how much more does he have in the tank? But I was impressed with him.
Yeah, he was phenomenal throughout the playoffs. I think there were some hiccups, but he was a large reason why they got this far. I look at Game 6 and 7 in the first round. He was spectacular in avoiding elimination and getting to the second round. And tonight, it didn't look good. It was not on him. He was like the only guy who showed up tonight, and he had every right to smash his stick into pieces early in the third period. The game would have been a lot worse if it wasn't for him. It was already pretty bad. It could have been a lot worse if it wasn't for him. He is getting older. I mean, this season, I wrote about it extensively, was not his best season. He rebounded near the end, but you have to wonder what's left in his tank. They don't have a lot of huge decisions to make this summer. their free agency, unrestricted free agents are role players. Paul Gostad, Carter Hutton. They do have to sign Philip Forsberg to a contract extension. That's a big thing, but he is an RFA, so that won't be an issue. But this was a very interesting season. I mean, we saw flashes of what this team could do. When they went on that 14-game point streak later in the season to essentially resurrect their season. I mean, I was incredibly impressed. This team did prove me wrong a lot in the end of the season. I did not think they had this in them, but obviously for them, a disappointing way for them to go out. But while we have you, captivated audience, we want to thank you for following the Tennesseans' coverage of the Predators all season long, and Joe for jumping in and doing a fantastic job at the end of the season. It's not easy to jump into a playoff run, but you did a great job, and
so did you, and thanks for teaching me about hockey and this team. I appreciate that.
And I for those who are watching, who followed my coverage all season long, I can't thank you enough. Last year I got a taste of it coming in late in the season, but this is my first full year in Nashville and covering this team and getting to know a lot of the fans, and I appreciate the support. I appreciate the back and forth. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was not so good. I know that a lot of you thought I could be hard on this team. Sometimes they deserved it. Sometimes they played really well. I praised them, and I think it was we have a good thing going here in Nashville. I like it. So
yeah, just be nice on Twitter.
Yes, be nice on Twitter. That's always very important. Those 140 characters can hurt, but for the last time this season, I'm Adam Vingan. This is Joe Rexrode from San Jose. The Predators season is over. In a couple days, they will clean out their lockers. They'll talk to us. We'll get some feedback on what they thought about their season. Maybe some key injuries that may have held them back, but. Back to Nashville we go. It was a great season overall, I think, and while it ended in disappointing fashion, I think the Predators do have a lot to build off of, and I think this team will be a threat in the Western Conference more regularly going forward. But again, thank you for following our coverage, and we will talk to you soon.